Hi, everyone. My name is Maria Papapietro, and I am the Assistant Director of Global Engagement in the Global Education Center. And I'm here to talk with you a bit about academic policies and procedures for while you are studying away. Really, there's three key points we want you to remember right off the bat. Students may not take courses pass-fail while abroad. Courses and grades from a student's term abroad will be posted to the Elon transcript, and grades will count towards the student's Elon GPA. And students cannot choose to exclude a course from the Elon transcript, even if it is not needed to graduate. These are three really key points to remember, and we'll remind you from time to time, but these are some big takeaways. Speaking of the Elon transcript, you all will be able to view another video regarding that course review form that hopefully you remember filling out at the time of application. It was that form where you listed the courses you're interested in taking on the host program and your request as to how each course will transfer back to Elon. And if you haven't yet, it should be coming back soon, but you'll be getting the results back of that form. And the registrar's office will indicate the confirmation of your course transfers. So it's really, really important when you do get that form back to make sure you look at it. And then you can always send new courses for approval as desired and as needed. It's really important. You'll want to remember to download that course review form, the results of the course review form, so that you can refer to it in the future without needing internet access. And it's also been requested that we remind you all to make sure that you know how to set up a VPN connection prior to your departure so that you're able to do that. So let's talk a bit about registration. So you will be registering yourself while you are abroad for spring 2022 courses back at Elon. So you are responsible for your registration, and there's very few exceptions to this. Make sure you plan accordingly to have access to reliable internet during your Elon registration time. And remember, your registration time is your registration time in North Carolina, Eastern Standard Time. It is not the time in your host country. So, if it's 6 p.m. in Italy and, your registration time, it would be noon, most likely, in North Carolina. So you'll just want to make sure that you're paying attention to time zones and remembering that your registration time is what time it is at Elon, not in your host country. We will email you about 2 to 3 weeks prior to registration as a reminder to kind of look at Elon classes for next spring, make sure you're engaging with that process. Because when you're abroad, sometimes you have a different concept of time. So we want to make sure that you're ready to register at your registration time. To check registration times, you can consult OnTrack, Elon's academic calendar for the dates, and your schedule. And remember, this is really, really important. Remember to check your Elon email at least twice a week throughout your semester away. Elon doesn't stop while you're abroad. So that's really email's the main way that we communicate with you and that Elon communicates you. So you'll definitely want to make sure you're still checking your Elon email, not every hour, but at least twice a week to make sure you're not missing any important reminders. Honor code. You are still held to the Elon honor code while you are abroad. You are also responsible for abiding by your host program's policies and procedures. You'll all have an orientation when you arrive on site at your host program that your host program will lead. So be sure you're really paying attention during that orientation as to what the rules are. Every program has different rules. Many of your programs will have the same rules, but be sure that you're paying attention because you are responsible for abiding by those. You're also expected to be fully engaged in your host program's academic requirements. What do we mean by that? Well, one example is that many of your programs may have required academic excursions during the semester. And if you plan personal travel, for example, before you know those dates of the required academic excursions, you may be penalized for missing them. So there may be other academic requirements of this program, of your program. This is just an example, but it's an important reminder to not plan personal travel until you have those important dates from your program and any necessary dates that you'll need to pay attention to. You may encounter some academic differences while you're abroad. In fact, you likely will. expect these differences, engage with them. Here are just a few examples of some of the differences between potentially your host program and Elon. Sometimes the amount of time spent in class versus independent study time expected outside of class can differ. For example, I advise for Australia, and at a lot of Australian universities, you might not spend as much time physically in class every week, but you're expected to do a lot of independent work on your own. So that's just an example. Sometimes the number of assessments during the semester can be different. In some countries, it's common to just have 2 or 3 graded assignments for the entire semester, whereas a lot of us who are used to a US context might be used to having something due for every single class. Grading policies might also be different. So, you may be in a situation where the grading scale on your host program does not match the typical US grading scale or the grading scale at Elon. So these are all things, and this list is not exhaustive, but they're all things to keep in mind. You all will be having a site-specific orientation at some point this spring. So for example, the Berlin students will have their own orientation. Students going to Barcelona will have their orientation. And that's very specific to your program. So that's a great time to ask questions about these academic differences if they're not already addressed, and to sort of start to get a feel for what to potentially expect on your host program. I hope this information was helpful for you all. And if you have any questions, feel welcome to contact us at any time.